We'd like to thank our sponsors, Hack and Rose, Attorneys at Law, New York City. New Pathway Counseling Services, Pinebrook, New Jersey. Warren Sand Company, Springfield, Illinois. Shook Funeral Home, Clifton, New Jersey. MedScreen Laboratories, Clifton, New Jersey. Standard Tile of East Hanover. Hayek's Hometown Market in Newton, New Jersey. And thanks to the many other sponsors listed here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Kosh of Greater Good Media, LLC. Welcome to the third episode of Breaking the Silence. Tonight's show focuses on what we can do to keep our kids safe by avoiding the use of alcohol and drugs. I'd like to thank the Clifton Kiwanis Club for allowing us to bring you this presentation and ask you, if you can, to make a donation or come on as a sponsor by going to www.greatergoodmediallc.com, clarkfredericks.com, or cliftonkiwanis.org. Now, let me turn this over to Clark Fredericks.
Welcome, everyone, to the third episode of Breaking the Silence. Our first episode covered the grooming process that predators use to obtain victims. The second episode covered if the unthinkable has happened and a child has experienced trauma or abuse, how do we get them to open up? In this week's episode, we're going to deal with substance abuse. What causes a child into addiction, and how do we get them out of it? For those of you who don't know my story after 2 weeks, hopefully you know it, but for new people watching, I was sexually abused from age 7 to age 12 by my Boy Scout leader. He eventually raped me at age 12. Addictions started almost immediately. Marijuana, alcohol, and harder drugs as I got older in life. I went down one dead-end street after another because I never sought out help at an early age. I denied the abuse to my parents, and I thought I could just bury the pain and shame deep down inside and go about my life. It doesn't work. And we have to remove the stigma of abuse, the stigma of addiction. And we need to treat children as early as possible so that later on in life, they don't become adults with addiction issues, as I did. I ended up murdering my abuser. I faced life in prison. I was blessed with only a 5-year sentence as victim after victim came forward. I'll discuss my own addictions that I faced from 12 on. And this is all about bringing awareness to people, awareness on how to get children to heal, how to get adults to heal. My two guests that I'm going to have on this week are both in the addiction treatment field. My first guest is Kim Vytell of Absolute Awakenings, and my second guest is John Michaud of New Pathways. Welcome to both of you. Hi, Kim. Hi, John.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Sure. Hey, John, would you like to give a brief overview of the companies you work for? Kim, do you want to talk a minute about Absolute Awakenings?
Sure. So I am the Director of Clinical Services at Absolute Awakenings Treatment Center. We are located in Denville, New Jersey. We treat co-occurring clients. We have partial level of care and IOP level of care. very individualized, small treatment center. We'll never go above 50 clients. We offer supportive sober living homes, so we can really help clients who are struggling with addictions, mental health, really integrate back into society. That's really our goal, is to help them address the underlying issues and then help them reintegrate back into society so that they can live healthy, happier lives.
One thing I think we need to also talk about, which I think is a big thing nowadays, is gambling amongst teens going into adults. Kim, is it just substance abuse only, or do you see people coming through with addictions to gambling?
A lot of times they do go hand in hand. We're primary substance use and mental health, but a lot of times we do see the gambling that comes with it. A lot of other addictions, sexual addictions,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. John, tell me quickly about New Pathways.
New Pathway is an IOP, an intensive outpatient company. We're in 3 counties, servicing 5 in total. Our focus is on the mind, the body, and soul. So we are a unique facility driven by intense work on the body. We are positioned in gym facilities, so exercise is a big component, followed by Eastern meditation, yoga, and Qigong, and then into your counseling, both group and individual, with master's level or above clinicians. And that's what we do. We're unique in the field. We service various populations from drug court and accept all insurances.
Do you see your clients coming in with besides substance abuse? Do you see other addictions such as gambling?
During an initial assessment, a counselor will call me with all types of situations. Based on the different addictions that we see, we will send them to an appropriate facility. For example, if someone came in with a gambling addiction, we would send them to Gamblers Anonymous. If someone came in with a sex addiction or an eating disorder, we would send them to the appropriate facilities. Oftentimes, we will assess a individual who needs a higher level of care right from the beginning. At that point, we would refer them to Kimberly, who would take them into her partial program, them residentially away for 30 or 60 days, and then they would return to the IOP. That's traditionally how it would work in an IOP. Oftentimes, the suffering soul who comes through our door isn't appropriate for an IOP. Then we would refer out.
Okay. Many states are passing legalized marijuana. What's your thoughts on marijuana use? Is it a gateway drug? I'll give you my thoughts afterwards. Kim, what's your thoughts on marijuana?
Is it a gateway drug? It can be. I think the simple answer is yes. Does every kid who picks up marijuana turn into a heroin addict? No, but I would say that most heroin addicts started with marijuana. So I think, I think it can be. And I think the problem with addiction is it's that disorder that you don't know you have it until you can't stop. So if you're experimenting with marijuana and then you're going on, and it can be problematic. So yes.
John, what's your thoughts on marijuana use?
I can only speak to that on a personal note. I'm not a clinician, so certainly Kimberly has the expertise there. I can only tell you I started smoking weed and then progressed through every possible drug there was.
Gotcha. Same with me.
I do believe it's a gateway drug.
Yeah, my thought process on it, and Kim, maybe you can see if I'm right or wrong, is I feel if a person has trauma in their past or abuse in their past, then it most likely will lead to other drugs. Do you feel that that's probably the case?
Yeah, yes. I think that, the difference between someone that just picks up at that age of 14, 15, we know statistically that children who suffer abuse, specifically sexual abuse, typically pick up at an earlier age. And, if you already have a trauma in your past, drugs take on a whole new meaning for you. It's not just,
Right.
it may be I pick up to fit in, or I pick up, but it's, it's that relief that you were looking for. And so marijuana is only going to give you so much, but you know that a substance can start to give you that. So now you're going to start to experiment with everything else until I get that relief that I'm really seeking.
Exactly. Right. Besides marijuana and alcohol, John, maybe I'll start with you on this. Are you seeing our youngsters, our teens, our children going to harder drugs at an early age, or is it still marijuana, alcohol?
Again, I can only address the 18 and above category, but we're seeing a tremendous amount of 18 through 24-year-olds going from weed right into heroin, which is now fentanyl. We're seeing a lot of Xanax users. We're seeing an across the board mix, but we're seeing a definite uptick through this pandemic in alcohol use. And that mainly stems from the 45 and older population. Our assessments in that age bracket have almost quadrupled in the last 6 weeks.
Wow. And Kim, what do you see coming through your door?
We're still in the midst of an opioid epidemic, right? It's not getting any better. It's still on the rise. I'm seeing a lot of clients who started using opioids a lot earlier than what we would have thought, than what we were seeing years ago. So we're seeing the benzos, we're seeing the painkillers get used, in high school. So yeah, that's the trend we're seeing too.
Yeah, I was shocked when I got locked up. The county jail, Sussex County Jail, where I was, it was filled with 18 to 25-year-olds who were heroin addicts already. And I did heroin myself, but it was much later in life. Not that makes a difference, but I just couldn't believe that 18-year-olds were turning to heroin already. And when I would ask them about it, they all said in high school they're starting with the pills, the pain pills, the Xanax, and then progressing, to heroin. Is that what you find to be true?
Yeah. We're finding most people don't typically just start with heroin. They don't jump right to heroin. No. It progresses. They're starting with painkillers. They're moving on very quickly to heroin.
All right. Do you see a difference, both of you? Kim, I'll start with you. Do you see a difference from people from suburbs versus urban areas on what they're on the strength of the drugs, heroin, cocaine, Roxy's, et cetera, versus one geographical area to the next?
I think the opioid epidemic has hit every demographic really hard. I don't think there's any way. Are there differences, or there's still, there's different trends in each area. We started in the past couple of years, we've started to see a lot more crystal meth, which was, unheard of a few years ago, unless, somebody was coming from like out west.
Right.
So I think it's pretty consistent. The trends change in all areas, but I think the opioid epidemic has remained consistent, hitting both urban areas, rural, suburban. It's hitting everyone.
I think Kimberly said it exactly right. We're in the midst of an opioid epidemic. We're seeing every type of suffering soul come through our buildings. For example, in the last 2 weeks, we had a gentleman from Goldman Sachs, one from Bank of America, and 2 unemployed truck drivers. So this is not a discriminatory disease. It's affecting every walk of life and every age group. And we are blessed to have centers, much like New Path and very much like Kimberly's facility in Denville, New Jersey, that can take the client, that can reach that client, assist them in their journey to sobriety, whether they be 65 years old, 16 years old, or any age in between.
John, I spoke at a few of your facilities, and I spoke to the adolescent crowds. Both of the speeches I did were for the juveniles. Are the younger adolescents that come into your facility, are they brought in by the law? Are they brought in getting caught at school with substances, or is it strictly getting caught by their parents? How do they arrive at your facility?
90% of the adolescents that arrive into our adolescent programs are through their student assistance counselors and their public schools. At New Pathway, we are one of the few companies that offers what we call the education program. So, for example, if a sophomore was caught smoking weed, he would be sent to New Pathway for 6 weeks, where in the morning, his education, we have certified teachers in the building. Wow. So for 2 hours, they do their education piece. They go from the education to the gym to lunch, and then 2 hours of substance abuse teaching. So that program is 6 weeks, but it's 90% driven by the school systems, the other 5%, the legal system, and the other 5%, just parents on their own.
So schools, I mean, I didn't know high schools, so it's like almost like a temporary suspension they're giving the student, where they're for 6 weeks, they're suspended from school, sent to your facility, and they not only to get alcohol and drug treatment, but they get their studies as well.
That is correct. The way it works is the school system, the teacher will provide our teacher with the work that needs to be done during that 6-week period. Our teachers will get that done so the student can assimilate back into class, having not missed any assignments. The substance abuse piece is from 12 till 2, where our clinicians are much like a treatment center, having treatment on substance abuse, so that the object is not to have that high schooler relapse again.
Right. When you say substance abuse treatment for 2 hours, is that like putting them in AA meetings?
Well, no, it's our own modality of treatment that our counselors have adapted to the adolescent population. As I said, we are driven by adults and adolescents. So we have a certain set of counselors for the adolescent population, and obviously another set of counselors, all licensed for the adult population.
Gotcha. I brought this up to Kim. I got therapy for the first time when I was in prison. And in prison, they have a TC program, which is therapeutic community. And because I had a high drug score on my paperwork, the prison, Northern State Prison in Newark, wanted to put me into a therapeutic community program. And you're in the TC program, you're doing a lot of substance abuse programs all day, AA programs, NA programs. And I mentioned to my therapist that the prison wanted to put me into this. And her thought process was, Clark, you haven't addressed the issues from your childhood yet. You can do all the AA you want, but if you haven't healed from what the root cause is of your addiction, no amount of AA will work. And I thought about it, and I agreed with her, and I turned down the therapeutic community so I could continue treatment with her. Do both of you incorporate therapy/counseling into your treatment?
Any support group, any community-based support is important. You know, we're dealing with a population that has completely isolated themselves, lost everything. So I think that that's important. But I think just like you said, you know, hearing it, it's sad to hear that the first time you got therapy for this was in prison, you know, and I think that that happens across the board. You know, I think that there's such shame and guilt that victims hold on to. They turn to substances, and then by the time they reach substance abuse treatment, it's just dealing with the presenting issue of, the heroin, the cocaine, the alcohol, whatever it is that's causing the problem in their life. So yeah, what we do is, when people say underlying issues, I would say, and again, this is just a number, so 9 out of 10 of my clients have some trauma in their background. And so often it's sexual abuse from childhood. So if we don't address that, we're sending them out there with the same underlying issue, so eventually that's going to come back and they're going to turn right back to that solution that has helped them for so many years. So yeah, we incorporate trauma therapy in group settings. We incorporate trauma-informed care in individual settings. We have licensed therapists. We do EMDR if it's appropriate. Because if we don't work on that, you're not going to get better. You're not going to heal.
Right. Exactly. I'll come back to the EMDR in a second. I want to hear about that because I keep hearing that from trauma victims who have reached out to me, say they're doing it. So John, is that also part of New Pathways healing process? Is therapy to get to the root cause of the addiction?
I don't want to speak to that professionally because it's not my area of expertise. I'm the opposite side of the clinical team and more on the business side of team. My focus would be if a clinician came to me and said, find my client an appropriate facility for a higher level KIMS facility or a sex addiction facility or just a higher level of opiate care. My area of expertise is in the community, whether it be the substance abuse treatment center community or the communities that we service themselves.
All right, but in your opening, talking about New Pathways, you did mention a few of the other things that you guys use to treat, which I think is unique in that you mentioned mindfulness, you mentioned meditation, you mentioned yoga, and you mentioned there's a heavy aspect on working out.
Our founder, Dr. Mattias, was one of the pioneers in the mind, body, and soul philosophy. So yes, we have a high concentration in the gym for exercise. The joke throughout the building is, what junkie have you ever seen that's in good shape? The second hour is your mindfulness, your qigong, your tai chi, your yoga. They're trying to put the body and the mind together to grasp the knowledge that you're going to have to absorb when you sit into groups and the individual therapies that the counselors will give to you.
Yeah, excellent. Part of my healing, meditation.
I hope I explained that well enough.
Yeah. No, it was good. Mindfulness. I read the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle when I was locked up, and it was about taking back control of your mind and being the seer of your thoughts. And that book changed my life because my mind had complete control of me. My mind was torturing me. And meditation was something I incorporated as well in my healing. Even in prison, I got into a pilot program, a 15-week pilot program on Vipassana meditation. I was one of 15 inmates to get accepted into their program. It was the first time meditation's ever been offered in a New Jersey state prison. So those things were all part of my healing. And since my release from prison, heavy weight training, working out is part of my therapy as well. So you guys are incorporating the same things I've incorporated into my life. So I applaud you guys. Kim, I want to come back to you. Do you use meditation, mindfulness, yoga, workout, any of those things John and I just mentioned?
We do. Clients who are living in our supportive sober living do go to the gym. They get gym memberships. They work with a personal trainer there. So, we definitely do incorporate that after clinical hours. We do yoga. We do a lot of meditation, mindfulness, in the morning and at night, teaching them really how to remain present, remain in the moment, how to quiet their minds. What we do see when we're talking about trauma is it's not easy for a victim of trauma, especially someone who's really suffering PTSD, to close their eyes and meditate. So that's something that we then have to work on and get them, and work with them individually to a place where they're able to really practice mindfulness.
Okay. Statistics I've seen show that 2/3 of the people in substance abuse treatment centers have either had childhood trauma or childhood sexual abuse. I keep getting private message after private message from victims of childhood sexual abuse who are incorporating EMDR therapy. EMDR, I looked it up before we came on, stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Besides that, I didn't read any further because I wanted you to explain it to me.
Okay.
So is that something, who is that more geared towards? Is that victims of childhood sexual abuse? And how does it work?
Not that it's geared for that, it's definitely been proven as one of the most effective treatments for PTSD. So it will help decrease symptoms of PTSD.
Which all victims of childhood sexual abuse suffer from. So
yes. Yeah. So, it's geared for anybody, anxiety, depression. There's a million things that it could be used for. In substance abuse, why it's so prevalent with childhood sexual abuse victims is because, just like you said, childhood abuse is so prevalent in substance abuse, so how it works, it's based on the idea that our negative thoughts, feelings are all results of unprocessed memories. So you have this awful traumatic event that's happened to you. Years later, you have flashbacks of that event. It's not just a memory of it. It's your thoughts, your feelings, your body, everything. It's as if I'm there in that moment, as I'm reliving it all over again. And these are what these clients have gone through for years, for their entire lives since that happened. Every day, however often, they continue to re-experience this traumatic event. So what EMDR does through bilateral stimulation, and it helps your brain naturally heal, and it helps you reprocess the memory. So it helps you replace it with a more positive, realistic thought. So if the thought is that I'm damaged, there's something wrong with me, I should have done something, how that affects our thoughts and behaviors and our feelings, you're going to feel shame, you're going to feel guilt, you're going to hold on to this, you're going to learn to cope with something that helps you deal with feelings of shame and guilt, which for us, it became drugs and alcohol for our clients. So how do we replace that? How do we help them understand that this is something that happened to you? It's not something who you are. It's not who you are, and this is something that you survived and something that you can move on from. And that's what EMDR does. It allows your brain to naturally heal itself.
Okay. There's such a stigma to sexual abuse, a stigma to trauma, a stigma to addiction. do you find, Kim, that adults who are coming into your facility, most of them are carrying unresolved childhood issues?
Yeah, I think that anybody who's suffered childhood trauma is at an increased rate for anxiety, for depression, for substance use. So yeah, they have unresolved issues, and like you said, the TC and I don't knock any other form of substance abuse treatment that's existed up until now. Now the field has shifted. Now we're really looking at trauma and how it's affected and the connection between trauma and addictions. And now we're focused on treating it. Before it was, let's fix this problem of addiction. They didn't understand maybe that if we don't fix the trauma, if we don't help them resolve this issue, the substance abuse is going to continue. So yeah, I mean, we have clients that, I would say almost all have some unresolved trauma in their past.
The average age for those who have childhood trauma to actually speak about it is normally age 48 to 52. So that's a lifelong of addictive behavior to grow within you. Is there an age? Do you see wide range ages coming through the facility, or is it older?
No, we see a wide range. We talked about the opioid epidemic that's obviously hit our young 20s to mid 30s. We do see older. I think, if you've held on to a secret for that long, it doesn't really matter, I guess, what age, you start picking up substances. Once the substances hit you and they become a problem and you come into treatment, how much better do I want to get when I walk out the door? So that's really what we really try to work with our clients on, is letting go of, and if you have this trauma-informed approach, you go into it understanding that the majority of clients sitting in front of you do have some traumatic past. We'll help you figure it out. We'll get it out, so you can resolve it.
Yeah. If my life hadn't fallen apart like it did, I can't say I would have ever gotten help. I had to be arrested and hit, everybody's rock bottom is different. And mine took facing life in prison for murder before the light bulb finally went off in me to begin healing. I know there's no straight path towards healing from addiction or childhood trauma. Do both of you find a high relapse rate? John, let me start with you on that. Do you have a high relapse rate amongst the adolescents or the adults that come through your facility?
I can't speak to the adolescent population. I'm not privileged to their charts.
Okay.
As far as the adults are concerned, certainly we see a lot of relapse. It's do I want to say it's chronic? I would say probably it is. I mean, I'm a 9-time loser myself. So relapse is part of the process. And it's an unfortunate part of the process. I'm happy to have only had, actually 8. I got it on the 9th try.
Bravo. Kim, what do you find?
Yeah, I mean, addiction, it has a high relapse rate. It does. Is there any way to stop that? You're dealing with life of issues that you've never addressed, whether it be trauma, whether it be something else. When we talk about trauma and sexual abuse, one of the hardest things to get someone to address is any sexual trauma that happened in addiction. because the guilt they hold on to, it was my fault. I shouldn't have been there. I shouldn't have been under the influence. So, relapse is going to happen. Is it necessary? No, of course not. But it does happen. It does happen.
Right. I think I had a bottom that is unlike most other people's bottom. So I smacked it so hard that I haven't had the 8 tries at it like John did, or like many others who I know did. I've been lucky. I'm clean and sober for over 8 years, and early on in my incarceration, maybe you could talk about this, Kim. I've heard my therapist say that it takes 18 months for your brain to rewire itself from the addiction avenues it has set up. During my first 2 years incarcerated, I would sit around with some of the guys I was locked up with and say, if I can ever get out from this sentence, from a life sentence, I can't wait to do another line of coke. I just, as soon as I'd sit and say, having a beer and a line of coke would be fantastic. And then somewhere in my 3rd, 4th year of being locked up, something switched in me, and I was like, what the hell am I thinking? I'm going to go back to living the way I was, like an animal again. It's just simply not going to work. So is that 18-month to 2-year range something you see?
I mean, it's different. Obviously, we know substances, how long you've been using, all of this affects how it actually affects your brain. But yeah, it does take a while. It takes a while for it to rewire itself. But there's definitely things that you can do to help the natural healing process. There's a lot that you can do in that time period. But it does take a while. It takes a while for you to address a lot of the issues. It takes a while for your decision making and impulse control, for all of that to come back. You say you were living like an animal. This is, we're dealing with a population that was not out there making the best decisions. Right. Decision making was significantly impaired. So yeah, it does. It takes a while. It takes a while of new routines, of, training yourself to understand, okay, if I do this behavior, I get a better result. So it takes a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe John, you can touch on this and you too, Kim, I never had any, I consider it a muscle that I have to work out, my self-control muscle, self-discipline muscle. I never had a self-control or self-discipline muscle. It was whatever was the easiest thing to make me feel better, to take away my pain, to not make me feel the shame I felt. I capitulated to it. And then to finally have to build some self-control and self-discipline is something I decided in prison before I got released, that I need to, for the first time in my life, exercise self-discipline. John, did you have to figure out how to self-discipline yourself in order to overcome your addiction?
Well, as my addiction progressed, in the end, the only muscle that I put in my brain was, what time does the first liquor store open at 7:00, and what time is the last one close? So the whole attention is on getting that bottle or getting that substance. When I went to treatment and came back and had made my mind up to seek out the best therapy, the best therapist, one of which is on your screen, it became evident that I had to change. And I will tell you this, what works for me and my thought process is, I can tell you that right now, today and tonight, I will not drink. When I wake up tomorrow morning, I will tell you I'm not going to drink tomorrow. And I'm driven by the AA model.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to work in a substance abuse treatment center. So I'm around, tremendous counselors every day, but the program works if you work it.
Right. Kim, is that something you see? Is your clients have never exercised self-discipline?
Self-discipline, self-control. I think, again, if you find something that works that quick to make you feel better, to change how you're feeling, you talk about guilt and shame. If I find something that can change that feeling, take that away this quick, why would I seek something else? And that's really helping them in treatment understand that, one, if I address all these underlying issues, not only does it not have a negative effect on me, I might cry, right? I might, but in the end, I start to feel better and that I do have better outcomes. So I think that's, self-control and self-discipline. Yeah. But at the same time, you found something that works. You found something that numbs that pain that you've been looking for. So that became your solution. It's trying to, again, treatment is helping you replace that with a better solution, a better way of thinking about yourself.
So just to sum up, what is your treatment for having the people feel better about themselves? What do you replace it with? Take me from A to Z real quick. For the person who just succumbs to the quick fix with drugs and alcohol every time, how do you replace that?
Again, one of the most important things is addressing why they were using in the first place. Talking about trauma, if that's why I've been using all these years, then I need to go back and address that. And I need to resolve that trauma. I need to have a healthier view of myself. So ultimately, it may be short period of time. EMDR works a lot quicker than talk therapy. It's not the ultimate fix. It's not for everybody. It's not, a lot of times we need to supplement with other things, but, it's helping you understand that this is something that happened to me. It's something that I survived. It doesn't define who I am. Same with addiction. It doesn't define who I am. So a lot of coping skills, right? Replacing it with routine, a better routine, a healthier routine. John talks about exercise and yoga. And, those are really amazing tools to use to change the state that I'm in right now. But if I want to long-term resolve these issues, stay abstinent, remain abstinent lifelong, I need to get to that trait change. I need to change how I view myself. And that's a lot of that underlying therapy. That's a lot of that underlying work. That's a lot of really addressing why I'm using in the first place. What is it that I'm trying to numb so bad?
Right. And a person, maybe that's why you see, relapsing, is because they're not ready the first, second, third time to address those issues. Maybe they just think that coming in for a 30-day cleanse and some AA meetings will fix it all, but it won't until they're ready to get down to the nitty-gritty on their pain and hurt and shame they're carrying, right?
Yeah, I think there's a number of reasons, for relapse. I think, when you say 30-day, that's become like the insurance company's standard addiction treatment. Here, go for 28, 30 days and you're good.
Right.
How do you expect to be healed in 30 days, right?
Like I said, I for 2 years, I was talking about getting high.
Yeah.
And not 30 days, right?
Yeah. So I think a lot of it, is, are they ready? I tend to argue that I think everyone wants to get better. I think it's just not, it's understanding that it's not going to be an overnight process, and so even if you don't want it, even if you come in like kicking and screaming, I don't want to change. I don't want to put down the substance. You can still get it. You can still get it, stick around, right? Start working on those issues, start to see that you're healing, start to heal those underlying issues, and you'll start to see that it's possible. So when we talk about self-esteem and self-esteem building, I mean, we're dealing with a population that thinks the only thing they're capable of doing is turning to drugs or alcohol to feel better. If you start showing yourself that that doesn't have to be who you are, that you can change that, then, you do start to change that, and your thinking about yourself does start to change.
Right. John, just to sum up on new pathways, if a child, adolescent is not in trouble at school or with the police, can parents bring their teens directly to you? And I ask this because within months after I was raped by my abuser at age 12, I began smoking marijuana on a weekly basis just because I had no coping skills for my thoughts. And I came home one day from school, and we all think we're fooling everybody all the time. Here I am, 12, thinking I'm fooling my parents. And I came home from school, and sitting on my bed was my pipe, my papers, and my marijuana. And my heart sank to the floor. And my father came walking in behind me, and he said, I am not putting up with this crap. I just researched a military academy outside of Philadelphia. If you don't cut this crap out right now, I'm shipping you off to military school. And I mean, God bless him, he missed an opportunity to open up a dialogue with me about, what the hell are you doing smoking weed at 12? What's going on with you? Talk to me. Instead, it was the disciplinarian tactic of, you're going to military school. So if a parent walks in on their child tomorrow and finds their marijuana and their pipe and their rolling papers, can they contact you directly, or does it have to be through the school and the law, John?
No, absolutely not. If a parent calls and wants us to do an assessment on their child, we're happy to do that. It's not something that's typically done here. It does happen. In most cases like that, the parent would seek first the individual therapist in their communities and start with them. Now, they may refer that child to us as an IOP, then we would get them. Sometimes they come in and knock on the door for an assessment, but more frequently it's the therapist route.
Okay. All right. And just to sum up, if somebody wants to get in contact with you, John, what counties is New Pathways? They can just Google, I'm sure, New Pathways. What counties are you in again?
We have buildings in Hudson County, Bergen County, and Morris County. We also service Sussex and Passaic and Essex counties. So just call New Pathway, ask for John, and I'll be happy to speak with you.
Excellent. Appreciate you being here, buddy. And Kim, I was driving on Route 10 and I saw a sign as I was flying along Route 10 that said Absolute Awakenings. So you're in Denville on Route 10. People can Google and find you there?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Awesome. I want to thank you both for being here. Hopefully we brought some encouragement to parents, encouragement to people facing addiction, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You do have to put in some work. You do have to address issues. That healing is possible. But I think the thing for the children and teens and adolescents that are having issues, I think parents need to realize they have to overcome the stigma of abuse amongst their child and realize that if treatment isn't sought out at this young age, it's going to be a lifelong problem. If a child has experience trauma or abuse, it needs to be addressed immediately, or else addictions will rear their ugly head later in life. I think that's important for people to realize. So I want to thank you both for being here. Thanks for the information, and God bless you both. Peace. Next week, everybody, we are going to break the silence on pediatric physical therapy. We're going to take this into a slightly different direction. How does pediatric physical therapy fit into breaking the silence? It's the same thing. The stigma of your child being born with an abnormality. Many pediatric physicians will tell a parent to take a wait and see approach, that the issue your child is having will play itself out. And that's not what you should do at all. Whether your child is born, there's things called toe walking. They're born on the spectrum with autism. I never knew that physical therapists treat autistic children and have great results with them. Next week, I'm going to have on Lisa Kaufman, who's been a pediatric physical therapist for almost 30 years. And we're going to touch on a lot of the things she treats and how they treat them. So it's something I'm looking forward to educating myself on, and all of you will get an education as well. Thank you for tuning in this week. God bless you all. Peace.
I hope you found this episode to be informative. I'd like to thank our guests, Kim Vytell and John Michaud. That's all we have for now. Have a great week. Remember, tune in next week to episode 4 and go to www.greatergoodmediallc.com, clarkfredericks.com, or cliftonkiwanis.org to become a sponsor or make a donation. Have a great night, everybody.
We'd like to thank our sponsors, Hack and Rose, Attorneys at Law, New York City. New Pathway Counseling Services, Pine Brook, New Jersey. Warren Sand Company, Springfield, Illinois. Shook Funeral Home, Clifton, New Jersey. MedScreen Laboratories, Clifton, New Jersey. Standard Tile of East Hanover. Hayek's Hometown Market in Newton, New Jersey. And thanks to the many other sponsors listed here.